So Ken, are you going out observing tonight or?
I might go out and take some binoculars out tonight. Since this is the first night it's been clear in a while.
Right.
I don't have a telescope set up at the house. Since we moved, everything's in storage.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That sort of puts a crimp in everything.
Yeah. Tomorrow we have a global star party. So that's happening. And Friday night, although I made a mistake and said May 5th instead of March 5th to the group, it is this Friday with Gary Palmer as co-host. So that's cool. Got invited by the, what's it called? It's called GLAS, GLAS, which is a group that does astronomy and science stuff and they've often met at Yerkes Observatory. And they're going to do a Messier marathon, I think March 13th. Is that right? March 12th, March 13th.
That's the early part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to do a virtual Messier marathon. I don't think they're going to broadcast it though. I think it's for their own private group or something.
A virtual Messier marathon.
Yeah. Have you done a Messier marathon before?
I've never completed one. I got 65 or 70 a few years ago at Hobbs, and then the clouds rolled in. I was banging along pretty good. About 1:30 in the morning. I mean, I wouldn't, I was moving through them pretty good.
Yeah.
And
what happened? Why did you stop?
Clouds rolled in.
Clouds. Oh, okay, they'll do it.
Yep, that will do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the full moon in March is March 13.
Yeah.
So anything on either side of that would be good. And generally the marathon is March into mid-April. So again, the new moon is April 12. So you got that period of time, to get a lot of them. Although, as there's 80 to 90 Messier objects visible every night.
Yeah, why aren't people doing
a Messier marathon of the month?
That's right.
MMOM. Mom.
Right. Have you seen this yet, Ken?
No. I was reading the email when you started it. Yeah, they're locked in L1 and L2.
Yeah, I wonder if any amateurs will get an image of this comet.
Oh, somebody will get it.
It's going to take a lot of work.
I mean,
music lower than voices. Yeah, the video volume is kind of lower. Check this out. This comet got caught in the Trojan asteroids going around Jupiter.
somebody will be able to get it. Or at least try.
Hubble Space Telescope got it.
Yep.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts and Kent Marts here, and this is the 25th episode of the FirstLight Chronicles program. And happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. I had a restful weekend, which was nice. And weather's been it's pretty nice today, here in Arkansas. So little blustery, but it was good. And it looks like we've got, as you said, maybe some clear skies tonight through
Yep.
maybe midnight. So now what I'm going to be playing with tonight, maybe, is this bad boy right here. This is the ED 102 that I've been working on. And you can see on the computer over there that Jerry Hubble's been working out the last details of the new firmware that he's about to release, for some beta testers. So we'll talk about that with Jerry probably tomorrow. Wednesday, we've got Damian Peach is going to come back on. If you guys were watching Damian Peach last Wednesday, his internet cut out. So, it was getting right to the juicy stuff of some of his images and stuff like that. And we were kind of going through it. And, it is the internet. So these things do happen. And tomorrow, Tuesday, I mentioned that we do have the Global Star Party. This is our 34th Global Star Party. On Friday this week, we will be with Gary Palmer as co-host for the 35th Global Star Party. So that will be a European edition. That Global Star Party will start at the same time this show starts, which is 4 p.m. Central. And, and we'll run for 5 or 6 hours into the night. So that's cool. And anyways, Kent and I wanted to talk to you today about kind of maximizing your experience level in as an astronomer. And the thing that makes you a better astronomer than the next one, or what you might otherwise be, is how much time you can actually put into it. So you have astronomers. I remember when I was first starting out in astronomy, I was ravenous. I'm out in my backyard, searching for deep sky objects every night, every clear night possible. That kind of waned off as I got into an astronomy club and started running an astronomy club, to where I'd only go out once a month. We'd go out, or special times, where we knew that something would be up in the sky. So we'd run out either to the desert or maybe just to our own backyards, depending on what it was. But I stopped doing astronomy every chance I could get, and part of that had to do with how I set up my equipment, how big of a deal it was for me to drag out the equipment and set it up. So, but we're going to talk a little bit about ways that you might get more experienced as an amateur astronomer. So what is your take on that, Kent?
What you've experienced is what I've experienced. Kids get in the way, there's sports in the way, and there's practices, and, it's just on and on and on. And things, fall by the wayside that if you get to a point in your life, you have to commit to it, or you make a decision that, I'm going to try and do this, once a week. And then the trouble becomes you start watching the weather and, have to trust the weathermen to do stuff. And I actually use an app on my phone called ICSC, which is the clear sky chart. And
oh yeah,
I've got it here on my screen. I can share it.
Sure.
With us. There it is. So this is the clear sky chart for Bentonville, Arkansas, which I set up. You can go in and take, and create it. We need to do one for here. There's not one for Springdale, but it gives you an idea that this is tonight. This is Monday, and the hours will go over here to Tuesday. This is midnight, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1300, 1400, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then to 24. So you can tell tonight that the darker the blue, the better the conditions. So you can see here that, the conditions for seeing aren't going to be real well, mostly because there's going to be some turbulence. And there's some, you can scroll down here and see that baby blue, that sort of greenish blue is 2 of 5 or maybe 3 of 5. So while it's potentially pretty decent for cloud cover and transparency, there is going to be some turbulence in the sky. As you can see, getting into Tuesday morning, it starts getting a little bit better. And then during the day, it falls off. But tomorrow night going into Wednesday is going to be, I'm going to predict that based on this, Wednesday is going to be the day for us to try and get out and do some viewing, because it's going to have much better transparency. The humidity is going to drop off. This is the darkness. Where's the humidity at? Humidity, the humidity is going to drop off, into the night. And weirdly, it starts getting really humid, going into the morning. Well, why is that? Because the dew's coming up. And when the dew comes up, there's a lot of humidity there. But right in here is going to be the sweet spot for us. So you can start doing some projecting ahead and say, well, it looks like Wednesday, so I'm going to, tell mama that I'm going to be out doing astronomy and trying to do some astrophotography or whatever. But like you said, the person that gets better is the person that does it more often. And,
Yes.
There's that rare person who just can hit a home run every at bat, which doesn't happen, but it's a decent example. But, you've got to get out there and take batting practice. You got to get out there and set up your telescope and learn to use it. And
Or
now's
do the
that
kind
time.
of observing. Yeah, I mean, whether or not it's just your own telescope or, there are some remote telescopes, which I'll talk about here in a second, but it is out getting the observing experience.
Absolutely, because you've got to learn to set up the telescope, take the telescope down. And right now it's been, you got it, late last year, going into Christmas, whatever. It's been 3, 4, 5 months. And right now is that time it's really easy to just leave it in the closet, not get it out, or commit to, I'm going to do this. And you spent the time, you spent the money,
Right.
commit to doing it. So I'm going to do it twice a month and just, look for the weather and try and predict it and just do it twice a month. And, obviously the best time to do it is around a full moon. So you can easily look up, and there's all sorts of apps that'll tell you when the new moon is. So you can start planning, if the full moon is this Saturday, we'll say, which it's not, but 5 days either side of that is a great time to view, no matter what, if you live in the city or not, because the moon does provide some light pollution. My viewing was hampered because when I lived in Bentonville, I lived in a forest. I still live in a forest basically. And so I had a really small chunk of sky that I had to be an opportunistic viewer of. Whatever happened to be in that spot is what I could use. And that's why I went with a Dobsonian telescope. It was real easy to plop down. I didn't have to polar line. I just set it down in my driveway, look up at the clearest patch of sky over my house between the trees. That was probably, 70 or 80 degrees wide by 40 degrees up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And just, it was a real place for Auriga, Orion, that neck of the sky flying over the house. And so I just, on a clear night,
But you're primarily also a visual observer. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
And so, there are opportunities for visual observers, even if you do get a lot of moon. Of course, that's not going to blast out the view of planets, So, you may be waking up very early in the morning to capture some of, some planets. That's always a possibility. But there's still really cool things to observe even during a full moon time. So,
Scott,
I wouldn't avoid observing during those times.
No, just use a neutral density filter if you're going to look at the moon. It's very flat, but it's interesting to look at it.
Or polarizing filter,
polarizing filter. One thing that I have done some of is lots of us view the moon in the evenings because it's when we're ending our day, we're not turned in yet. Many of us, you have to make an effort to get up to look at the new moon or the moon in the morning. The moon in the morning looks completely different than the moon you looked at that night because the terminators moved. And for me, I haven't looked at the morning side of any new moon. It's a rare thing for me to do, and when I do it, things look completely different by being 6 or 8 or 9 hours older than they were because that terminator's moved and it looks different. Right. And that's one thing I've when I get my house done and have a little observatory available there, forward to being able to get up in which I have clear sky, clear horizons.
Right.
So it's going to be nice to have a clear horizon, B, have a roll off roof observatory, which means I can walk outside, look at the moon for 30 or 45 minutes, or get some pre-twilight ending observing time. And I've not told Scott this yet, but I'm just going to take his telescope and put it in my observatory. I haven't told him that yet, though.
I didn't tell you that I'm gonna live next to your observatory.
Well, Scott, you can, because I'm going to put in at least a 30 amp, if not a 50 amp circuit, and a couple of
over there a lot,
and a couple of drainage fixtures. So. Yeah. You have dumps built in, sewage and water.
In the Barbergene over there.
I'm gonna put it. My plan is to put in at least 2, so that people can come chill out and use the observatory or whatever.
Sure. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. So, okay, if you get this, and we're going to talk about backyard observatories and possibilities for what might be called a backyard observatory. Okay. How often do you think it will increase your observing time if you have this, nice, comfortable?
I think it's got a lot of potential, and it has a lot of potential for people to come over, and make it a group thing. I mean, Paul and Kathy are just drooling, for the chance to come over and use a set up telescope, and they live in the woods too. So they have this cone that's about like that.
I know, they got trees all the way around.
Yeah. They live in a funnel. They live in a bottom of a tree funnel.
Yeah, like Jerry Hubble does, right?
Yeah. It's not as bad as Jerry, but it's or at least the MRSO, but it's pretty significant. It's much more significant for them. They literally probably can't see anything below 60 degrees, maybe, all the way around. So they literally are sitting in the bottom of a funnel. Okay. So they're looking forward to being able to get some horizon and spend the nights over there. I'm looking forward to having them there.
All right.
So anyway, but the possibilities of observatories, you're limited by your mechanical ability or your pocketbook. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
If you're good with handy with a hammer and can build a shed, you can build a roll-off roof observatory.
Right. And you don't even need a shed. You could have like I've had friends that have built, they call them coffins, okay, where it was literally just a thing that would fit over the telescope, and it had an O-ring seal on it, so they could, keep it watertight. It wouldn't, leak, that kind of thing. And when they were observing, they would just take this thing off. And I've seen how to take it off. I've seen all kinds of stuff, from like little cherry pickers from engines, to pick things up and move them, to, things that would swing away, things that would separate out, so, and Don Parker, I've talked about Don Parker a lot on this show and on our various shows that we have. He was planetary imager. He kept his 16-inch, I think it was like an F8. I mean, it was this really, really, really long 16-inch Newtonian, small secondary obstruction on it. And his scope, this is Florida now, okay, and he was right on the salty water. So he had rust all over his telescope and everything, but he kept it working all the time. And when it got rainy outside, he just put a tarp over it. Otherwise, it was exposed to the night air all the time. One of the rustiest, crustiest looking telescopes that you ever saw, but the optics were amazing, and he made incredible planetary images. And the reason why he did is because he was every imaging opportunity he had, okay, he was out imaging. And so Don probably had millions of pictures, okay, that he could work with. And so that made him an expert. It made him a go-to resource, like Damian Peach. I mean, Damian's been called on by NASA and different ESO for information about weather systems on Mars and Jupiter and Saturn. And, Don Parker was the same kind of guy because he was imaging those things all the time. And he was doing astronomy all the time. He just loved it. Let's recognize some of the people that are on our show today out in the audience. We got James, the astrophotographer, Richard Grace, Astrobeard is out there. Pekka Hautala, he says, hello, ladies and gentlemen, from Stockholm, Sweden. Book Davies says, hey, Astro dudes. And Richard's saying the weather looks clear tomorrow, so you'll be out imaging for the Global Star Party. That'll be cool. Let's see. Mike Wiesner, happy Monday from windy Southern Arizona. East Texas Stargazer. There was a club up in the mountains of California that called themselves the Stargazers. It's pretty funny. Book Davies, it says it's looking clear here so far. So Book, you got to at least join the after party for the Global Star Party. Tim Meyer says hello. Michael Whitaker says good evening. Harold Locke says good afternoon from San Diego County. Thank you. Blair Light says hello everyone. Hope you had a great weekend. Nothing but clouds here in BC. Okay, not sure what.
NBC.
What is NBC? No.
Nothing but clouds.
Nothing but clouds. That's right. Okay. All right. I'm a little slow, folks. Let's see. I think there's a question here. Cameron Gillis says hello. Just joined late and multitasking with work, so we'll be back in 30 minutes. Okay. Thanks for checking on our volume. It's weird because I'll pull down videos and the video volume is never equalized to our voice. So I have to ask you guys so that we can try to augment that. Michael Whitaker says, I got 3 reasonable clear skies over the weekend. That's awesome. East Texas Stargazer says, I've always been a wide field observer and have a question. I just took delivery of a 10-inch Dob and was wondering if the ES 4.7 82-degree eyepiece is asking too much from the new scope. This is what I would say is that to use a 4.7, there's really 3 things that you need. One is that your scope needs to be very well collimated, okay? Number 2, you push your telescope to high powers like that, the scope needs to cool down to the outside temperature, okay, which on a 10-inch telescope might take 2 hours, okay, to cool down. If it's warm inside your garage and you take the scope out and it's cold, it's going to take a little while. But number 3, and the biggest one is how steady is the sky above you. And so, you can estimate the sky stillness by one of the things I do is I just point the telescope at a very bright star nearby the object I'm going to observe. Usually it's going to be a planet if I'm looking at those kind of magnifications, and throw it out of focus. And if you see what looks like rushing water running through the out of focus light, you know that you're going to have bad seeing conditions, which is going to blur out all of your detail. If you find that it looks like slow moving waves through there, now you got a better chance at having some nice sharp observing. Your eyes working like a camera, movie camera lens. It's capturing, I think, once every 1/30th or 1/60th of a second, something like that. And your brain starts to build up an image that looks very sharp to you. If the seeing is not good and you still want to observe at high power, you can stop down a 10-inch telescope. You can't go the other way. You can't take a small scope and make it bigger, but you can make a big scope and make it smaller with like cardboard mass. Okay, so you can take a 10-inch and knock it down to, let's say, a 6-inch or a 4-inch or a 3-inch even. and it will see better through bad seeing than a big aperture telescope will, because big aperture means more resolution, and it's going to resolve all the distortion in the sky as well. So that's my tips there for doing that. Clear Light says life always gets in the way of a good time. Yes, it does. Pekka says he's very interested to be a beta tester if it includes a G11 Los Mandy mount and an Explore Scientific ED127 carbon fiber SCD 100 that can be held after testing. I can test the rest of my life. We'll have to think about that, Pekka.
But we get that request periodically.
Yeah, very narrow, very specific about it when he wants to beta test, So
I've thrown up a picture of John Adler's roll-off roof.
Isn't that okay? That's very nice, very simple,
it's
beautiful.
very simple, very straightforward. He's in a rodeo, New Mexico. This was taken a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
But it's it drives. He bought a little plot. He had lived for 1,000 days in his RV.
It is dark out there too.
It's dark out there.
We did a star party at rodeo, and it's just incredibly dark.
If you've ever heard of the Arizona Dark Sky Village, he's about 5 miles just east of there.
Yeah.
So he's in one of the darkest places, and it's going to have the least amount of development, which is why the Arizona Dark Sky Village is located where it is, because the county won't allow much development. But he's got a 500 square foot little house that he bought and is improved. Oh, okay. And so
so this is right outside of there.
Yeah, this is right outside of there. And he built this last year. He's going to. It is a Airbnb that's going to be advertised as a dark sky. You get the use of the observatory or whatever. So he was going to go on the road, in his RV for half the year and rent this out for half the year. So he's not sure what he's going to do now. He's talking about building a house next to it so he can still rent it out and still live there. But it's very simple. There's nothing, with a little bit of woodworking skills and a saw, you can build this without a whole lot of money. Running power, it's pretty straightforward. So I thought it was just pretty, especially with the snow. And so there's one way of doing it that's pretty straightforward.
Right. Well, I think having some sort of a permanent setup, whether it's just, you could just have a pier in the ground, okay, with your equatorial head on there, all drift aligned and ready to go, and just bring your scopes out, okay?
Right.
Maybe change out counterweights a little bit. Anything that you can do to keep so that you don't have a lot of setup, like you don't have to pull power out there, if you can accomplish that. If you can, if you can securely keep your scope, safe, from pilfering and that kind of thing. I mean, one of the things about being out at rodeo is that it is very close to the border of Mexico. So you do have people that are, coming across and occasionally might.
John said he's not had any problems with that. He said it's been.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing you talked about, the equalization, you said let the 10-inch knob cool down.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing people don't realize is how important that is to keep your telescope in a place where it's not really hot or not really cold, stays close to the ambient temperature.
Well, and the observatories, they air condition them. I mean, they keep them, they measure what the temperature is going to be that night, okay, the prior night, and they keep the observatory cool down to that same temperature all day long, so that when they open up the dome, it's basically to ambient temperature already, including the optics and everything.
Yeah, because when you're talking about a piece of glass that's, 30 or 40 or 50 inches across and who knows how thick.
Oh, sure.
Or a 6-foot mirror that's a foot thick, you can't cool it down in a night. You couldn't do it. So they have to be.
That's true.
Have to be active in their temperature management. But even a little telescope is going to have a heat chimney that's going to cause heat rising, trying to get through, is going to create the same thing as like a star on the edge of the horizon, or it looks like a fire truck coming at you. Red, green, red, green, red, green, red, blue, red, green, yellow, and just changing color. It can
And I
do all
like
sorts
that.
of
I like
crazy
the
things.
psychedelic effect of dancing.
There have been people at star parties who are fascinated by that
I love
twinkling
it.
and just want to
I
look
know
at
what it
that.
is, and I still love it. I think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's a disco ball. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a little disco ball for sure.
Yes.
I don't know if I wanted to look at that all night or not, but for a few
No,
minutes in the evening, it's
that's
pretty
true.
cool.
That's true.
Pretty cool. But let that telescope, even if you got an inexpensive telescope, let that thing cool down. Put it out on the porch, put it in the shade of a tree,
Yeah.
and let it cool
Yeah.
down.
I'm sure you've had questions in customer service where people are saying, God, my scope, we got out, it was whatever minus temperature or, triple digit hot temperatures. Is that going to damage my optics or damage my telescope in any way? And the short answer is no. Okay.
It's going to damage your scene, but it's not going to damage
Yeah,
your
you're
telescope.
seeing it's a temporary
No.
optical effect, but nothing's going to get really damaged. Things, we can do this in a whole separate program. What could damage your telescope? And maybe we'll talk about that, but that's going to be moisture, dust, neglect is going to damage your telescope.
I suppose if you left it in a car enclosed for months on end on the sunny side of the car, you could probably cause some damage or
greases and, lubricants and stuff like that.
You could cause some damage that way environmentally, but otherwise it's moisture is going to be your problem. Dropping it,
dropping it. Yeah, that's a good way to damage your telescope is drop it.
Well, let's talk about dust real quick, Scott. We see people and people will call and they'll take a bright flashlight and shine it either through the rear of the telescope or get down close and inspect the glass, and they'll find 10 or 12 flecks of dust. And
nothing though.
And they don't. And I just went through one of the dealers that you know well. I gave him my explanation of dust, and it's there. And even if we clean it within weeks, it's going to have dust on it and in it again. And the dealer's response was, "That was the response I expected. I passed it along, and she's going to cancel the order." And so, because she wanted optics to arrive with absolutely no dust.
Yeah,
and
that's we really can't guarantee.
We can't guarantee it because even if we're able, we don't have a dust-free room like NASA where everybody's in a bunny suit.
No, and no one wants to pay the price of building a telescope in a class whatever clean room. Okay, right. That's not
Well, NASA does.
Yeah, but NASA is also spending mega bucks. Okay,
yes,
so,
yes.
Right? I mean,
so and I tell people, well, when you pulled it out of the case and pulled the plastic off of it, where did you set the telescope? And they said, well, I set it on the floor where I didn't want it to, or up on the couch. And I was saying, you realize
the dust-free floor, right? That doesn't have any dust on it.
And
right?
so, or even your dining room table, you charge that thing up with static electricity when you pull that plastic bag off of it.
Oh yeah.
And that dust is going to jump up, zip, and stick on the piece of glass. And it's part of it. And, you shared the story before about the telescope recently. A guy took a sledgehammer and then a pistol too.
Yeah, that happened in the 70s. It's McDonald Observatory. We've talked about that several times.
Yeah. So we might want to take a scope.
It's frustrating because there is a I think, well, first off, I'll say this: refractors in particular, all the precision to make a beautiful refractor gives people an expectation level, okay, even before they buy it, as they're buying a brand new refractor, and they're in love with the refractor image and the close to perfection level that it can provide in images. But that kind of leads you down the path of wanting perfection on absolutely everything, and if you've only spent, let's say, $5,000 or less on a telescope, to get something that is clean room quality, okay, that you're just as Kent said, dust is going to hit it anyways. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So Celestron, Mead, Takahashi, Astrophysics, all of us, okay, don't build our telescopes in clean rooms. It's just, it's not affordable. It's not sustainable. If you really watch the contortions that we go through in the industry to get a telescope out there to the marketplace and derive that technology from what used to be very expensive technology to make it affordable in a couple of thousand or multi-$1,000 class is really amazing. And case in point is looking at things like CCD cameras or CMOS cameras, the software, the telescopes, the mounts and stuff like that. To be able to buy it for the prices that it's sold out is really, it takes people that have been able to take that kind of technology and make it affordable, so that's the deal. You can always spend, if you want to spend the money, the PerkinElmer was a company that made, they made an 8-inch Cassegrain that I bought when I was working at OPT. And I found out what the original price was on it. It was made for the military. It was a Schmidt Cassegrain, and PerkinElmer made it, and it was almost $100,000 for an 8-inch tube assembly. Okay.
And what year? What year was that?
Well, this is
84,
1980s.
Wow. What'd you pay for it? 90,000.
I got it for like scrap value because they were dumping it. So. Yeah. And it was a beautiful optical system. It weighed a ton. Okay. The kind of mount that I had to put it on was much, much heavier duty than a mid-size mount or whatever, because the tube assembly weighed like, this 8-inch telescope weighed almost 50 pounds. So it was,
and it had dust in it.
Oh, absolutely had dust in it.
So Scott, what we ought to do is we ought to take some dots and stick them on the front end of a refractor, sure. One that's
like
silver grade or something.
Dots or something like that.
And make a big
stand in front of the telescope, stand in front of the telescope. How big is your head compared to a piece of dust,
And see what we can do photographically, at night with up to 5 or 6 or 7 millimeter dots on the end of a telescope we've got astigmatism that we can't sell. And so, but we can still do something like that as a demonstration of,
sure.
of it does not matter.
Telescope, it's no problem.
Sir?
I says we can do it on we can do it on the scope that's here.
I don't want to stick and, stick them on the front end of your telescope.
It won't
I know, but okay, we do it on that telescope.
You don't mind.
Do it live. Do it live.
Yeah.
Stick them on there and then take pictures and see how big they have to be before they actually start showing up. They
have to be huge.
Well, we know they have to be huge because you can take, like on my Schmidt Cassegrain, when I'm looking at a lunar eclipse, which is when the moon is full, I'll take a piece of manila paper and I've carried it with me. I've got 4 holes cut into it. The holes are that big around.
Yeah.
And so there's 4 holes and the rest of it's not there. And you look through it and you see one image. You don't see 4 moons. You see 1 moon.
We're going down a rabbit hole for the show.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to talk about how to get more experience as an amateur astronomer.
Use your telescope.
How to use your telescope more. Okay, so one of the ways, is making sure that you have a pair of binoculars. Those are 2 telescopes tied together. Okay, and having something like a zero gravity chair in your backyard, or something that you can just carry out and make it real easy on yourself and do some stargazing. Okay. You can, some of the mentions that, things that we talked about earlier was putting up a permanent pier. You could disguise your permanent pier. If you're in a condo or something like that, you could have like a pedestal that comes up that's beautifully decorated or whatever. You could put a bird bath or something on top of it so that nobody knows. Nobody's the wiser. Okay.
Yeah, a sundial or something.
You take the bird bath out, make sure the birds are gone. put your telescope or your mount back on it. I like the idea of keeping the mount on. Okay. So if you're going to do that, you can wipe down all the metal parts of your mount and, whatever might be exposed to the elements with WD-40. That's a water displacement, works really good. That's what they wipe down rockets with. Okay. That's what it was designed for. And it will keep, it'll keep dust and grime from, eating at your mount. If your name's Don Parker and you don't care, okay, then let it rust, just as long as you keep the gears lubricated and these kinds of things. It won't look pretty, but it'll still work. Okay.
So Scott, is Don the guy that had a hurricane come through and he picked the telescope up and poured the water out?
Yeah.
Tell that story.
Instruments, the founder of the company gave Don, because of all of his contributions and stuff, gave him a 16-inch LX200. And he just had it set up outside all the time on that steel tripod. And the steel tripod, the first time I saw it, because they had me install it, the scope was beautiful. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And he says, I'll just cover it up with a tarp when, well, he kept it covered most of the time. Some of the time he didn't. Okay. And so he had some Japanese astronomers visiting him. A saying that he had is that at Don Parker's houses, we're always open, but we don't do mornings, so, and that's because he would have visiting astronomers over all the time. And so he had two patios. Okay. This is on his house that was overlooking the, one of the canals where the ocean water would come in and your boat. He had a boat that was out there docked next to his house. And anyways, a little tornado came by and it knocked over the telescope. Okay. The 16-inch LX200, and it rained inside of it. Okay. So they picked up the scope. He and the Japanese astronomers picked it up, flipped it back up on his tripod, let the water drain out the back. Okay. And then they stuck on a diagonal and used it. And Don said that it was still in collimation. So, the weird things that a tornado can do. Okay. But that was one of the stories he liked to tell. He kept those scopes outside all the time because he wanted to be the better astronomer. He wanted to be the more expert astronomer. And that took, if he had to go out and set up those telescopes every night, that would not have happened. Okay. So he was always ready to go, and he just replaced cables and stuff like that corroded and kept his system running, so that was part of the ongoing maintenance of his telescope. If you're out where it's relatively dry, or if you're just in a regular suburban type of thing, set up your telescope outside. Pekka, for example, keeps a telescope set up all the time. It's on his patio. He is ready to observe at a moment's notice, in places where it's cloudy a lot, and you only get a few nights a year. Pekka's got to be ready, to do that. So that's an important lesson to be learned. We have, I pointed out often on this show, but we had a guy in Singapore, I think, during the Asian edition of the Global Star Party. And his telescope was polar aligned inside of his house. He had a window that it was aimed out. Actually, the lens was not even sticking out the window. Okay. Whole telescope's inside the house. And he would just turn off the room lights and image through this part of the window every night. He had incredible deep sky images, so again, he was able to become a better astronomer because he was imaging more, didn't have to tear down or set up his telescope, so these are things that you can do. And I think the other part is not waiting for perfect moments. If you're going to wait for perfect weather, perfect skies, perfect conditions, you're not going to get near the kind of observing opportunities that you can get, I told the story of observing Halley's Comet when it was going to be at its best. And I had to go out in a rainstorm, and I did, and my telescope got rained on, my optics got rained on. I was soaking wet, but I got a little break in the clouds and I saw Halley's Comet, so when everybody else is just like, nah, I missed it because I couldn't, wouldn't go out in the rain.
Yeah. So Scott, would you advise against using like a turtle wax or a car wax you can buy at a big box retailer on your telescope? I mean, it's
metal parts. I mean,
right.
Absolutely no problem.
Wouldn't wax the glass though. Don't wax the glass.
No, the glass. You're going to do your best to keep it capped. You would like to protect the glass as much as possible. If you're not afraid of it, now there's people that want their telescope to look beautiful. Okay. Beautiful to look at, beautiful to look through. Okay. That's a requirement for them. You and I sell telescopes, so we want them to be beautiful to look at, beautiful to look through, right? But if you are trying to get it as much imaging as possible, you're going to keep the scopes operating, the optics reasonably clean, okay? Reasonably clean, not crazy about it, but reasonably clean, and ready to go at any time. That's what David Levy does, okay? That's how David got so much observing in to find all those comets, okay? He was ready to go and did observing all the time and made it easy on himself. He has a big roll-off roof observatory. He's got, I don't know, a dozen telescope inside
something like that.
Big observatory, and he's ready to go. When he goes traveling, he brings a traveler scope, and it's a little 6-inch that fits in a suitcase. He doesn't do an elaborate setup. It's set up in alt-az. He doesn't have any electronics on it, and he's out there doing visual observing.
I got to spend a night at the Arizona Dark Sky Star Party with him. He was sitting out there in the middle of the desert, and I was just hanging around, and everybody else was, knocking off midnight, 1 o'clock. And I'm like going, I'm not going to sit here and let David get eaten by hyenas or, coyotes or something.
No, he was using our 12-inch Dob.
That's correct. He was using the 12-inch Dob. And I was just sitting there, and it was such a pleasure to sit and listen to him just talk. And at one point he stopped talking and he went, oh my goodness. And I'm like thinking, I'm going to be sitting next to David Levy when he discovers a comet. He discovers his comet. I'm sitting there thinking, the way he stopped and just started talking, I thought, he's like, that shouldn't be there. And he's like, and he finally went after about 2 minutes, he went, oh yeah, I'm in the wrong part of the sky. He is viewed so much that he has the sky like memorized.
That's right.
And he realized he was looking somewhere else. And I was like thinking, I was about to pop, knowing that I'm sitting next to a guy that just discovered a comet. And but it was still a joyous night to sit out, just to hang out with David and just be exposed to somebody that has memorized the night sky by using a telescope every night.
Yeah. Every night. So if it's clear, David's out there.
And he doesn't get up till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon now, right? I mean, he literally is still out every night.
He doesn't get up early. Let's just say that,
Yeah.
Yep. He doesn't do mornings unless there's a comet up in the morning, and then he's up till daybreak, and I've been out observing with him until the sun came up. So
that's what we did that night. We were out in September until the sun came up.
Yep. It's very cool. Very cool. So Harold Locke comments, he says, not stickers that static charge the material that they use cell phone glass. You just pull it. He says, you just pull it of no glue. Okay.
Yeah, it's static charge. We could do that. We could cover it with black and cut it up into shapes and just stick it on there. That's a good idea.
We could do that. That's true. No glue. Michael Whitaker says, I'm still waiting to get the best out of my equipment. I don't care how long it takes. I know it's coming. Okay. Eduardo Simone says, hey, Scott, can you please send me one of those dusty telescopes? They're everywhere. You can find them all over the place. Let's see. Smells good too, WD-40. I find the smell of WD-40 kind of a sweet type of smell. You know what it is? It's fish oil is what it is, with other stuff in it, but it's fish oil. So somebody says you can use a watertight bucket. Pekka says, I think that you have to set up every evening polar line level amount. And so on every clear night, after a while, you don't do that every time you would like to. That's true. You know, if you're setting up and tearing down all the time, it gets old. Clearlight says, so I have a steel tube telescope. You're saying that I can wax it to keep it from frosting up or getting too humid. It probably would still frost up. I mean, my waxed truck gets frosted up, you know, but you know, as soon as it, you know, the ice melts, it just rolls right off. So,
and it's going to slow it down a little bit, I would think, because it's a curved surface. That dew is going to maybe not freeze so quick. It may shed water a little bit better that way. But if it's cold enough, you're right, it's just going to stick. The frost is just going to get there.
Right. Tim Myers has asked me, Scott, you mentioned a cleaning solution that you used to clean diagonals. Would that solution be recommended for cleaning a glass-covered camera sensor? I would say so, but here's one of the things you always need to be careful of with any solutions is that you're not applying too much so that it goes to the edges of the glass, like you have a glass window over a sensor, and then it goes up underneath and gets trapped. Okay, you don't want to do that, so you got to be careful. So I would check into that more, Tim. If you have like a film of material over the glass and you know that it's knocking down contrast, or you see tons of dirt on the images, you know, then that you can't get rid of with the flat field, then I would say, yeah, you need to go in there and clean it. There are special cleaning procedures that you can see on YouTube for doing that. Levy has rock star hours. Yes, he does, because he is a rock star of the astronomy world. James, the astrophotographer, says it's crazy how much muscle memory is in some of the visual observers. Just point to objects without even a thought. James, there was a guy, his name was Joe New, and way back in the day when Coulter Optical was in business, this is back in the 80s and 90s, Joe New could look at, you could be standing behind the telescope, but Joe would grab the front of your telescope and look at you, literally looking towards the ground, okay, with his back to the sky. And he could move, he'd say, okay, that's M81, right? And then he'd go, okay, there's M82, there's this, there's that, there's this star, there's that planet. He could move it without looking at the sky. He was that good, okay? So that, you're right, there is muscle memory.
That's crazy, Scott.
It's crazy good.
That's crazy.
Reverend Evans, who had discovered many supernova with his 16-inch Meade telescope back in the 80s and 90s, he could, from memory, find and double check hundreds of galaxies. You know, he just knew where they were. And he didn't have time to look down at a star chart. He would just go from galaxy to galaxy and he'd know which ones they were. And then he would know if it didn't look right. Okay. And that's how he found his supernovas. Richard Grace says, I set up after the day show and before the star party. I'm getting around to doing this, but the sun is going down later and I wonder how long I can keep up. Yeah. Dusty Haskins says Simple Green was the magic add-on, right, Scott? No, I've never used Simple Green on my telescopes, but I think, you know what? I think that Al Nagler uses Windex. I think he does. You know, good coatings are not going to be affected by cleaning agents like, you know, like that. But what I use, here's my secret lens cleaning formula. It's not really secret because I tell everybody. What it is it's you get different spray bottles. One spray bottle has pure distilled water in it. That's all. Okay. Another spray bottle has 95% or better pure isopropyl alcohol. And then the third one is a mixture of 2/3 distilled water, 1/3 isopropyl. And this is to make like a pint. Okay. And 4 drops of Formula 409 lens cleaning solution. And that is enough of a surfactant to remove some stubborn stuff. Okay. So that's
rather than Dawn soap, a couple of drops of
Dawn as well, but I used to use 409. So
that was the days before Dawn existed, probably.
Yeah, because we use Dawn now.
Eduardo Simone's noted that he ordered a telescope that's apparently back ordered.
Yeah.
Yes, sadly, that is the story.
Oh, yeah. Good Lord. Yeah, and the rest of the world, all the rest of the industry is back ordered right now. So,
but the point of it is, buy it now, so when we get them in, we have one to ship you. Because if you wait until we have them in, I fear that we've increased our order, just guessing that we're going to sell more than we have. But it's entirely possible that by the time those telescopes get here, we're sold out again. That's my biggest fear right now. So that's why, Eduardo, what you've done is a good move. Buy it now. When they come in, it'll show up and be ready to go, and you won't have to wait.
Yeah. Somebody wants me to write down the formula here. 2/3 distilled water, 1/3 pure isopropyl alcohol. I can't even pronounce or spell alcohol. Here we go. Alcohol.
Wait a minute. You can spell isopropyl, but not alcohol?
Isopropyl's easy for me. Alcohol's I don't know. It's kind of weird. All right. So, and then I use 4 drops. And I used Formula 409, but you can also use or clear, unscented dishwashing detergent.
I was just sitting here looking, you can buy looks like a 30-gallon drum of isopropyl alcohol, 99% pure for $769. That's a lot of cleaning right there.
I don't think I'd want to keep that bomb in my house.
Yeah.
Let's see. And that make a pint. What is it? 4 pints to the gallon? Is that what it is? 4 quarts to the gallon.
2 cups to the pint, 2 pints to the quart, 4 quarts to the gallon.
Yeah.
6 teaspoons. Let's see. Can't remember. My mom pounded that into me when I was a kid.
Yeah, the metric system's probably better for this. So,
yes. Yeah.
So anyways, and that makes about $7 handle of vodka. Okay. $7. So anyways, I did want to show, the other way to get more observing experience in, and this is being done by some people who, like Pranvera Hysini. She's crazy over asteroids, and she doesn't always have direct access to a telescope. So she has used, let me share this with you. I don't know I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but it's a program called SLU. Okay, so this is SLU's Metaverse of the Universe. And you can buy time, okay, and say, I want to see this kind of an object, okay? And so they'll go and collect the photographs for you. You can't control the telescope, but they'll collect the photographs for you and send them back to you. And so that's that. If you're just looking for purely data, you're doing asteroid work, you're on a supernova hunt or whatever, you can use these kinds of things. There is the Mark Slade Remote Observatory. This system is through Jerry Hubble's team, and they have a nonprofit organization called the MSRO, Mark Slade Remote Observatory, or Mark Slade Remote, or MSRO Science. And they will show you how to use the instrument. They'll go through a whole science program with you for that $150 charge. And then you get a certain amount of time on the instrument where you're controlling it, you're making the images, you're doing everything. And in fact, that's what I'm setting up here in my office, is a system just like it. Okay. So that that people can get some access to it. And once Jerry and I are done with it, we will set up nights where people can log in on Zoom and control it and have a nice experience. It's only 102 millimeter refractor. It's not the 165 that one is, but and then there's other remote observatories out there. There are telescope farms that you can get involved with. This is what they look like, where you can buy your telescope, rent a space, set it up. They have people that are there that live on the property. If something goes wrong, they can take care of your telescope, because in a remote observatory setup, something's going to go wrong. A cable's going to get snagged. Something's going to happen, and you need somebody there. Maybe the observatory can't close, and you've got bad weather coming. That's another issue. Remote observatory. Oh yeah, check this out. You can see this is just a big pad with a bunch of piers set up. Okay. So this is something else, you can just set up one pier in your backyard, and have a great night of it. That's the same setup with all the lights. They got red lights out there. So kind of fun if you have an astronomy club. But you don't have to buy property. You don't have to spend all this money. You can build a telescope coffin. I don't know if there's any pictures of telescope coffins. Let me see. Telescope coffin.
Hey, Scott, while you're looking that up, I'm just looking at prices for 99% pure alcohol, isopropyl. Yeah. And most of the big box retailers are carrying 91%, not 99.
That'll work too.
It's so that other 9%'s water, right?
It's water.
So yeah. You can it's distilled water. So you can simply use 91% and adjust it down and don't use quite as much water.
Right. Okay. I type in coffin and I get all kinds of coffins here. I don't want that. Telescope. Cover. Let's see what we come up with here. And we get, of course, all these little covers here, but you get, here we go. Here we are. Here's one. Oh, look at this one. This one looks like a police box. That's cool.
You can make one look like a British telephone.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Here's just a this is just a telescope cover. Here's another one right here. Telescope motel.
Look on that one. Let's see how it works. Oh, it just folds off, doesn't it?
Yeah. Looks like you just got a handle. You pull it off. So you see, this is a concrete pier, and it looks pretty innocuous, so.
Yeah, you could put, if you just want to cast a pier, you could put a garden gnome, a fairy
lightweight
mirror.
This is. The motel oscope cover is super strong and lightweight.
That one works out a lot. They photoshopped her muscles out, so it looks lighter.
Yeah, he says, we had 20 minutes of dime-sized hail last weekend. My trees and plants were destroyed. We had to replace parts of their roofs, but my motel oscope and all my valuables inside it were totally undamaged, even though it is directly exposed to my yard. Okay, this is Nick in Cedar Park, Texas. So, this is something you could build yourself. Maybe they give you parts and stuff like that where you can build one. But no, this is showing you how to build it. Yeah, I'm going to give you guys the link to this so you can check it out.
Yeah, that's a build. I mean, it's showing how to build it
That's in the
yourself.
backyard of somebody's house, and if you don't own the property, then you can have a pier that's removable. You could drill bolts into concrete, and then when you leave, you can uh, pull those bolts out and fill them in and do a really nice job and be done with it, and take your Motello cover, whatever that thing is. I think that's very cool.
Hey, Scott, Jim Norwood suggests Everclear, which is like 190 proof,
Yeah, it's
which will be 90%
don't be smoking
alcohol.
a cigarette near that stuff. Okay, so that's right.
No, but you could, if it's cloudy, pass the time away cleaning the insides.
Right.
Shot of Everclear every 30 minutes.
And clean your insides too.
That's what I mean. Yep.
Well, okay. So these are just some of the ideas here. Even that Motello scope cover thing, you could put little fan, like a computer fan on it to keep it cooled off during the day. I probably paint it white, so it doesn't get too hot, from sunlight shining on it, that kind
You
of
can have
thing.
a little thermostat in there that after it reaches a certain temperature.
Insulation, they got that. You can go to Home Depot and you can buy sheets of that foam with laminated with aluminum, whatever foil type of, so real easy. And, this is going to keep your telescope safe, and people, they're not going to know what that is, so, but I like that little, police box thing. That was kind of cool. This one. TARDIS telescope cover. Here we go. Duncan Kitchen is a stargazer and a Doctor Who fan. He also has a rather large telescope that's too big to be easily taken inside and back out so often. So he built a TARDIS box.
Show it to us. You're not sharing your screen.
Oh yeah, hold on. Sorry, I'm reading it to you guys. And here we are. So I think it's cool. And you can do all kinds of things. You can make it look like a doghouse. You can make it look like whatever,
An outhouse.
No, porta potty.
People might not like that in the neighborhood.
They might not, but
stop right there, Scott. Stop.
Constantly.
Scroll back up just a little bit. That with the trash cans.
What's that?
There's a picture right there with the trash cans on the
trash cans
in the middle. The cover. No, the cover to the left of that one.
DIY rain barrel cover. Okay.
It's just right there to the left. You just missed it. You're on it. It's got two trash cans and open tops. The sides open.
Oh,
up.
that
thing. Yeah.
Oh, you can buy these things. These things are plastic sheds that you can buy. So yeah.
That you could certainly modify to
$59, and you got your flip top observatory.
Yep. And it's probably light enough you could scoot it out of the way, put it somewhere and scoot it out of the way.
Yeah. They look, there's one that looks pretty nice. $265.42. The cost of a decent eyepiece. You could have your own little observatory, And I don't know
Is Jerry messing with your computer?
Jerry's messing with my computer. He is too. I think he knows that I'm on the air, so he's doing it.
He's at home laughing like a maniac right now.
No, you know what? That is my uninterruptible power supply. It's doing it.
Uh-oh.
So I guess I'm getting power interruptions, which is keeping my show alive. So I think we probably should close down for the night before I actually lose everyone. But I just want you guys to think about creative ways to become a more experienced astronomer. And it can make your whole experience much more fun. If you go on vacation or something, you still feel real easy about it, then take your scope out of your little TARDIS cover, or your Motello cover or whatever, and make your scope secure. But I think at this point, Ken, I think that that's the signal that
Yeah, something's going wrong. We
Yeah,
need to
the
shut
universe
down.
is telling me I need to end my show right now. So,
Correct.
right? Okay. Anything else you want to add? I mean,
No.
don't forget Global Star Party tomorrow, Global Star Party Friday.
My waiting room will open up. You can come in and join the after party through my waiting room.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. Say hi to Ken. No one's going to bite your head off. We're very friendly. Okay. You want to do this. If you haven't done it, do it. And Damian Peach will be on Wednesday. So we've got a nice week planned this week. And that's it. And I'll leave the chat. I think that if I just leave the chat on, you guys can continue to chat. So I think I've seen this a few times after I closed the show. So, but fun to see you guys. Thanks for all the interesting comments and questions. And we'll see you tomorrow with Jerry Hubble. Okay.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Take care. It says February 12th. It's a special live event. That's already passed.